The Etheri Dawn drifted through the cold darkness of space, its hull scarred by years of wear. It was once a proud battleship of the Etheri Empire, but now it was nothing more than a rusting relic. Other species in the galaxy laughed at it. Even the Etheri themselves had abandoned it, using it only for minor diplomatic missions and cargo runs. It was slow, its weapons outdated, and its shields barely held together. No sane commander would ever take it into battle. But war didn't care about sanity. The Krivok Dominion, one of the most feared warlords of the galaxy, had launched an unexpected attack on Etheri space. The Empire had always thought its powerful fleets would keep them safe, but the Krivok were relentless, destroying Etheri warships one by one. The Etheri High Council was in chaos. Their fleets were scattered, their defenses crumbling. They needed reinforcements, but the only ship available nearby was the Etheri Dawn. It was a joke, a ship too weak to fight, facing an enemy too strong to stop. But the Etheri had no choice. Desperate, they turned to the only species in the galaxy crazy enough to take a hopeless fight. And win. They called the humans. Captain Ilias Voss stood on the bridge of the human transport ship Valiant Star, arms crossed, watching the holographic projection of the Etheri Dawn. He had fought in many battles, but he had never seen a ship in such bad condition. Its engines sputtered, its hull was cracked, and its weapons looked like they belonged in a museum. "That's our ship," Chief Engineer Marla Hayes asked, standing beside him. "That's our challenge," Voss replied with a grin. Marla shook her head. "That thing shouldn't even be flying. It's a miracle it hasn't fallen apart." The Etheri representative, Commander Zeltor, folded his arms, his blue-scaled face tense. "This ship is all we have. The High Council has ordered us to reinforce the border. If we do not act now, the Krivok will take everything." Voss turned to look at him. "And you think humans can fix this?" Zeltor hesitated. The Etheri were a proud species, and they rarely asked for help. But now, they had no choice. "Your people have a reputation," he admitted. "You turn the impossible into reality. You win battles that should not be won. If anyone can make the Etheri Dawn fight, it is you." Voss looked at Marla, who sighed but gave a small nod. "All right," Voss said, stepping forward. "We'll take your rust bucket. But when we're done with it, it won't just be a ship. It'll be a legend." The first time Voss and his team set foot on the Etheri Dawn, they nearly turned back. The inside was worse than they expected. Wires hung from the ceiling, the air smelled of burning metal, and half the control panels flickered as if they were about to die. The Etheri crew barely acknowledged them, looking skeptical and unimpressed. "This thing is a floating coffin," one of the human engineers muttered. Marla ran a hand along one of the walls and frowned. "The power core is weak. The shield generator is ancient. And the weapons? Don't even get me started." Voss smirked. "Then it's a good thing we brought humans." The Etheri officers scoffed. One of them, a tall figure named Lieutenant Varicus, stepped forward. "We have studied human tactics, Captain Voss. Your kind relies too much on luck and reckless ideas. This is a Etheri ship. It will not bend to your chaos." Voss met his gaze and grinned. "That's the problem with you, Etheri. You think rules win wars. But out there," he pointed to the stars, "the enemy doesn't care about your rules. They only care about survival. And humans, we're very, very good at surviving." The Etheri didn't reply, but their expressions showed doubt. Voss turned to Marla. "Let's get to work. First, we fix the engines. Then we make this ship fight like a beast." She rolled up her sleeves. "This is going to be fun." For the next several days, the humans worked nonstop. They ripped apart old circuits, rewired energy systems, and reinforced the hull with stronger materials. They installed human-style weapons, fast, efficient, and deadly. The Etheri watched in disbelief as the Etheri Dawn slowly changed before their eyes. But the biggest change wasn't in the ship. It was in the crew. At first, the Etheri officers resisted human tactics, refusing to believe in their methods. But as they watched the ship transform, as they saw the impossible become possible, something shifted. They began listening. They began learning. They began to believe. And just in time, because the Krivok had found them. An enemy scout fleet was approaching fast. The Etheri Dawn was still not fully ready, but Voss only smiled. "Good," he said. "Let's show them what humans can do." The emergency alarm blared across the Etheri Dawn. Red lights flashed in the dim corridors, and the old ship groaned as it powered up for battle. The Krivok scout fleet was approaching fast. 5 warships, heavily armed, and ready to destroy anything in their path. Inside the control room, Captain Elias Voss stood with his arms crossed, a grin on his face. The Etheri officers around him looked tense. Their ship was not ready. The shields were weak, the weapons had barely been tested, and the crew was untrained for human-style combat. Lieutenant Varkas, one of the highest-ranking Etheri on board, turned to Voss with a sharp glare. "We must retreat. The ship is not ready for battle." Voss raised an eyebrow. "Retreat? We're not running. We're fighting." Varkas let out a frustrated hiss. "Are you insane? We do not have the strength to win this battle." Voss smirked. "That's where you're wrong. We don't need strength. We need strategy." Commander Xeltor, the Itheri, who had requested human help, watched silently. His people were proud warriors, but Voss and his crew fought differently. Humans did not fight fair, and that was why they won. Voss turned to Chief Engineer Marla Hayes, who was busy tapping commands on a console. "How much firepower do we have?" Marla sighed. "Not much. The plasma cannons are working, but the targeting system is slow. Shields are at 60%, and the thrusters need at least 2 more hours of repairs to reach full speed." Voss nodded. "Good enough." He turned to the crew. "All right, people. The Krivok think we're weak. They think they can just roll in and blow us up. Let's prove them wrong." Varkas still looked doubtful. "How?" "Their ships are faster, stronger, and more advanced than ours." Voss pointed at the screen, where the Krivok ships were closing in. "That's exactly why they'll lose. They expect us to fight like everyone else. We won't. We'll fight like humans." The Etheri officers exchanged uneasy glances. Voss grinned. "Now listen carefully. Here's the plan." The Krivok fleet commander, a towering brute named Varrock, watched his target from the bridge of his warship. The Etheri Dawn was a joke, a weak, outdated ship that had no chance of winning. "Send a message," Varrock growled. "Tell them to surrender or be destroyed." The communication officer nodded and sent the demand. Within seconds, a response came back. But it was not a surrender. It was laughter. Captain Elias Voss appeared on the Krivok's view screen, smirking. "Hey there, big guy. Surrender. That's funny. I was just about to say the same thing to you." Varrock snarled. "You are outnumbered and outgunned. You cannot win." Voss leaned forward. "Oh, we're not trying to win. We're just trying to make you regret showing up." Before Varrock could respond, the Etheri Dawn fired first. The battle began with chaos. The Krivok warships moved in a tight formation, expecting an easy kill. But as soon as they closed the distance, the Etheri Dawn did something unexpected. It turned and ran. The Krivok ships chased after it, their weapons locking on. Inside the Dawn, Voss shouted, "Now!" Marla activated a hidden energy burst, pushing the ship into an unpredictable spin. The Dawn twisted sharply, dodging incoming fire by mere meters. Then, the human-modified cannons fired, directly into the enemy's weak spots. One Krivok ship took a direct hit to its engines and exploded. The remaining 4 ships hesitated, confused. Varrock slammed his fist on the console. "They are toying with us. Surround them." But that was exactly what Voss wanted. As the Krivok ships closed in, the Etheri Dawn released dozens of small, human-made drones, tiny, fast-moving machines equipped with disruptors. They swarmed the Krivok ships, scrambling their targeting systems. The Etheri officers watched in awe. Their ship wasn't the strongest, but it was now the smartest. "Fire at will," Voss commanded. The Dawn unleashed everything it had. Plasma blasts, torpedoes, and EMP bursts struck the Krivok ships from unexpected angles. Within minutes, 2 more Krivok warships were disabled, drifting helplessly in space. The remaining 2 turned to flee. Vatarok, furious, shouted, "We will return with a full fleet." Voss leaned back, smirking. "You do that, buddy. We'll be waiting." With that, the Krivok ships jumped to warp, retreating in shame. On the bridge of the Etheri Dawn, silence filled the room. The Etheri crew stared at Voss and his team, their expressions unreadable. Then, slowly, Zeltor stepped forward. "We won," he said, almost in disbelief. Voss nodded. "Yeah, we did." Varkis, who had doubted the humans from the start, looked at the view screen, where wreckage from the Krivok ships floated in space. He turned back to Voss. "Perhaps human tactics are not as reckless as I thought." Voss grinned. "Welcome to the fun, my friend." Marla wiped grease from her hands. "Let's get back to work. We've made this ship dangerous. Now, let's make it unstoppable." Zeltor's expression grew serious. "We must move fast. The Krivok will return. And next time, they won't be so easy to defeat." Voss's eyes gleamed with excitement. "Good. Let them come." The battle had only just begun. The Etheri Dawn drifted in the silence of space, battle scars covering its hull. Inside, the crew worked tirelessly. Sparks flew as engineers repaired damaged systems, and the hum of machinery echoed through the corridors. Despite the victory against the Krivok scout fleet, everyone knew the real battle was still ahead. The Krivok would return, and next time, they wouldn't underestimate the Dawn. Captain Elias Voss stood in the command center, arms crossed, watching a holographic projection of the ship. Next to him, Chief Engineer Marla Hayes studied the damage report. Shields at 40%, weapons half-functional, and thrusters barely holding together, Marla muttered. "This ship is hanging on by duct tape and luck." Voss grinned. "Good thing humans are great at making duct tape work." Commander Zeltor, the Etheri officer who had first called for human help, watched the interaction with curiosity. His people had always relied on strong and advanced technology. Humans, on the other hand, had a different approach. They took broken things and made them dangerous. Lieutenant Varkis, one of the most skeptical Etheri officers, frowned. "The ship is still weak. It is no match for a real Krivok fleet." Voss turned to him. "That's why we're going to fix it. And not just fix it, upgrade it." Varkis scoffed. "With what? We have no resources, no shipyard, and barely enough power to keep life support running." Voss smirked. "That's where human creativity comes in. We don't need the best tech. We just need to be clever." He turned to Marla. "What's the wildest upgrade we can do with what we have?" Marla grinned. "Oh, I have a few ideas." For the next several days, the Etheri Dawn became a construction site. The Etheri officers watched in disbelief as the humans worked, tearing apart old systems and replacing them with scavenged parts from destroyed Krivok ships. The first upgrade was the weapons system. Etheri weapons were powerful but slow. Human weapons were fast and unpredictable. Marla and her team stripped down the ship's plasma cannons, modifying them to fire in short, rapid bursts instead of long, draining blasts. They also added a Krivok energy disruptor to overload enemy shields. The second upgrade was the engines. The Dawn was slow, which made it an easy target. So Marla and the engineers redirected excess power to the thrusters, boosting speed in short bursts. It wasn't a full-speed upgrade, but it would allow the ship to dodge attacks like a much smaller fighter. The third upgrade was the AI battle system. Human engineers installed a human-designed AI program that could predict enemy movements and adjust tactics in real time. Unlike Etheri systems, which followed strict battle rules, the AI thought like a human, unpredictable, adaptive, and creative. At first, the Etheri officers resisted the changes. "This is madness," Varkis muttered, watching a human engineer attach an untested Krivok power core to the ship's main systems. "You are breaking every rule of engineering." "Exactly," Voss said with a grin. "Rules don't win wars. Adaptation does." Varkis wanted to argue, but he couldn't deny the results. The ship was coming to life. It wasn't just a broken warship anymore. It was becoming something new, something dangerous. On the 7th day, the upgrades were complete. The Etheri Dawn was still not the strongest ship in the galaxy. It was still smaller, still outgunned. But now, it was fast. It was unpredictable. It was something the Krivok had never seen before. It was ready for battle. Just in time. Enemy ships detected. A Etheri officer called out from the control panel. 5 Krivok warships incoming. The bridge fell silent. Varkis clenched his jaw. "They have returned." Voss stepped forward, his eyes gleaming. "Good. Let's see if our upgrades work." The Etheri Dawn powered up, its engines roaring to life with new strength. The AI system analyzed the incoming enemy ships, predicting their attack patterns. The modified cannons hummed with energy, ready to unleash a storm of fire. Zeltor turned to Voss. "What is the plan?" Voss grinned. "Simple. We don't fight like they expect. We fight like humans." The Krivok warships opened fire, plasma blasts cutting through space. But this time, the Etheri Dawn didn't just sit there and take the hits. It moved. With a sudden burst of speed, the ship dodged the first wave of attacks, spinning through space like a predator stalking its prey. The Krivok hesitated. This wasn't the slow, weak ship they had fought before. Voss pointed forward. "Fire." The modified plasma cannons unleashed a rapid barrage, striking one Krivok ship's engines and sending it spiraling out of control. The AI adjusted tactics in real time, predicting the enemy's counterattack. Marla grinned. "It's working." A second Krivok warship fired at them, but the Dawn dodged at the last second, using the thruster boost to swerve around the blast. The humans had turned the ship into something no one had expected. An agile, deadly trickster. Within minutes, 2 more Krivok ships were disabled. The last warship hesitated, then turned to retreat. Voss smirked. Not this time. The AI targeted the fleeing ship's engines, and a final plasma blast hit its mark. The last Krivok warship exploded into a fireball, leaving nothing behind. The battle was over. On the bridge, the Etheri crew stood in stunned silence. Varkis slowly turned to Voss. "That was impossible." Voss shrugged. "Nah, just human ingenuity." Zeltor looked at the wreckage floating in space. "We have made this ship dangerous." He met Voss's gaze. "Now we must make it unstoppable." Voss grinned. "Then let's get to work." Because the real war was just beginning. The Etheri Dawn floated in the darkness of space, victorious once again. The wreckage of the Krivok warships drifted in the distance, a silent reminder of the battle they had just won. But Captain Elias Voss knew this was only the beginning. He stood at the center of the bridge, watching the debris through the viewscreen. Around him, the Etheri officers were still in shock. Just days ago, they had believed this ship was weak, a relic of an older time. Now it had defeated a Krivok attack force. Twice. Lieutenant Varkis, who had doubted the humans from the start, crossed his arms. "They will return," he said grimly. "And next time, they will bring a real fleet." Voss nodded. "Exactly. Which is why we need to be ready." Commander Zeltor stepped forward. "How do you propose we prepare? We cannot outrun an entire fleet, and we do not have enough firepower to win a direct battle." Voss smirked. "Who said anything about a direct battle? We're going to set a trap." The Etheri officers exchanged glances. Varkis frowned. A trap. Against a Krivok fleet. That is suicide. Voss leaned against the control panel. Only if we do it wrong. But if we do it right, we'll turn this ship into the most dangerous thing in the sector. He turned to Chief Engineer Marla Hayes. How long do we need to repair the ship? Marla ran a quick scan of the systems. We can get shields to 80% in a day. Weapons are stable. The engines still need work, but they'll hold for a fight. Voss nodded. Good, because the Krivok will be back soon. Zeltor narrowed his eyes. And what exactly is your plan? Voss grinned. We make them think they have already won. For the next 24 hours, the crew of the Etheri Dawn worked nonstop. Repairs were made, weapons were recalibrated, and a special kind of chaos filled the ship. The Etheri officers had never seen anything like it. The humans weren't just fixing the ship, they were changing it. Marla and her team modified the energy cores, making it seem like the ship was losing power. They adjusted the hull plating to appear more damaged than it actually was. They even broadcasted a fake distress signal, one that the Krivok were sure to intercept. To the enemy, the Dawn would look like a crippled ship, barely surviving its last battle. Varkis still looked doubtful. What if they do not take the bait? Voss shrugged. Then we improvise. But trust me, they'll come. And he was right. Just as expected, a Krivok fleet appeared on the sensors 12 hours later. 10 warships, twice as many as before. Varkis let out a slow breath. They are here. Zeltor turned to Voss. This had better work, Captain. Voss grinned. It will. Get ready. The Krivok ships approach, forming a battle formation around the Etheri Dawn. The lead warship, larger and more heavily armored than the others, sent a transmission. Vaharak, the Krivok fleet commander, appeared on the view screen, his reptilian face twisted into a grin. You should have run when you had the chance, human. Voss feigned a look of exhaustion. Yeah, well, we didn't have much of a choice. Vaharak let out a deep, rumbling laugh. Your ship is failing. You have no power left. Surrender now, and we may let you live. Voss sighed, rubbing his face. All right, you got us. We surrender. The Etheri officers stiffened. Varkis looked at him in disbelief. Zeltor clenched his fists. Vaharak looked surprised but pleased. Wise choice. His warships began moving in, preparing to board. But as soon as they got close enough, now, Voss shouted. The Etheri Dawn roared to life. In an instant, the damaged systems activated at full power. The ship surged forward, firing its newly upgraded weapons at point-blank range. The closest Krivok warships took direct hits, their shields shattering under the unexpected assault. Before the Krivok could react, the AI battle system took over, predicting their movements and striking their weakest points. Plasma bursts and disruptor beams tore through the enemy ranks. Vaharak roared in fury. You tricked us. Voss smirked. Yeah, we do that sometimes. The Krivok fleet tried to regroup, but the Dawn was already in motion. Using its modified thrusters, it weaved between enemy ships, dodging fire and striking back with precision. The AI-controlled turrets targeted critical systems, disabling enemy weapons before they could retaliate. Within minutes, 3 Krivok ships were disabled, drifting helplessly in space. 2 more exploded as their power cores failed. The remaining 5 warships hesitated. Vaharak clenched his fists. Retreat. But it was too late. The Dawn fired its final shot, a powerful EMP blast, taken from salvaged Krivok technology. The pulse spread across space, shutting down the remaining enemy ships. Silence followed. The once powerful Krivok fleet was now floating wreckage. On the Dawn's bridge, the Etheri crew stood in stunned silence. Varkis turned to Voss. That was not an honorable fight. Voss smirked. Nope, but it was a winning fight. Zeltor nodded slowly. Perhaps there is more to human warfare than we believed. Voss clapped his hands together. All right, people. Let's clean up the mess. Something tells me the Krivok won't stop here. He was right. Because deep in Krivok space, the High Command had just received word of the defeat, and they were preparing their real fleet. The war was just beginning. The Etheri dawn drifted in the silence of space, surrounded by the wreckage of the defeated Krivok fleet. Fires still burned on some of the disabled warships, while others floated lifelessly, their systems shut down by the EMP blast. Captain Elias Voss stood at the center of the bridge, arms crossed, watching the aftermath of their victory. The humans and Itheri crew around him were still in shock. They had defeated a Krivok battle group, 10 warships against their single, once-weak vessel, and they had won. Commander Zeltor exhaled deeply. I still cannot believe it. Lieutenant Varkas, ever the skeptic, shook his head. This was not supposed to happen. The Krivok do not lose like this. Voss smirked. Well, they just did, and they're going to be really mad about it. Marla Hayes, the ship's chief engineer, turned from her console. Captain, I hate to ruin the victory party, but we have a problem. Voss turned to her. Of course we do. What now? Marla tapped on the holographic display. That EMP we used. It shut down the Krivok ships, but it also drained a lot of our energy reserves. We won't be able to do another trick like that anytime soon. Varkas' mandibles twitched. So we are vulnerable. Zeltor nodded. And if the Krivok send reinforcements, we will not survive another battle like this. Voss ran a hand through his hair. All right. We need to move, and fast. Any nearby systems we can hide in. A Witheri officer checked the star charts. There is a nebula nearby. It will disrupt enemy sensors and provide cover. Voss nodded. Good. Set course for the nebula. Let's disappear before the Krivok come looking. The Etheri Dawn fired up its modified engines, moving swiftly toward the nebula. As they entered, the thick cosmic dust cloud surrounded them, blocking all outside signals. It was a perfect hiding spot. But Voss knew they couldn't stay hidden forever. He gathered his officers in the war room. A holographic map of Krivok-controlled space floated in the center of the table. All right, people, Voss said. We just humiliated the Krivok in their own backyard. That means 2 things. 1, they'll be sending a bigger fleet after us. And 2, we now have their full attention. Zeltor frowned. What do you suggest we do? Voss pointed at a location on the map. We stop running. We go on the attack. Varkas' mandibles clicked in disbelief. Attack. We are barely holding together. Marla grinned. He's right, though. Running won't work forever. If we keep retreating, they'll just corner us eventually. Zeltor studied the map. Where do you propose we strike? Voss zoomed in on a specific point. Here. The Krivok have a supply station at the edge of their territory. It's lightly defended and serves as a fuel depot for their fleets. If we take it out, we slow them down. Varkas shook his head. That is a foolish risk. Zeltor, however, nodded slowly. No, it is strategy. If we strike first, we weaken them before they can send their full forces against us. Voss grinned. Exactly. We hit them where it hurts, then disappear before they can react. It'll buy us time to repair and prepare for the next battle. Varkas still looked doubtful, but he didn't argue further. Zeltor turned to the crew. Prepare the ship. We go to war. The Etheri Dawn emerged from the nebula, its engines burning with renewed purpose. The supply station was only a few hours away, and they needed to strike fast. As they approached, Marla ran a scan. Looks like we were right. Only 2 defense ships and a few automated turrets. Voss nodded. We hit them hard and fast. No warning, no mercy. The Dawn charged forward. The first Krivok defense ship barely had time to react before a plasma barrage slammed into its hull. The second ship tried to return fire, but the modified thrusters allowed the Dawn to dodge with ease. The AI battle system predicted every move, striking weak points with deadly precision. Within minutes, both enemy ships were crippled. The supply station's turrets fired desperately, but Marla had anticipated them. She had already jammed their targeting systems. Voss smirked. "All right, let's finish this." The Dawn fired its main cannon, hitting the fuel depot directly. A massive explosion erupted from the station, sending shockwaves through space. The remaining Krivuk forces had no chance to respond. In less than 15 minutes, the entire facility was destroyed. On the bridge, silence fell as the crew processed their victory. Varkis exhaled. "I do not believe this." Zeltor turned to Voss. "That was effective." Voss chuckled. "Told you, humans don't fight fair." Marla checked the sensors. "We need to get out of here. That explosion will have alerted every Krivuk in the sector." Voss nodded. "All right, people, let's vanish before the real trouble shows up." As the Ytheri Dawn jumped to faster-than-light speed, one thing became clear. The war had officially begun. And this time, the Krivuk weren't just hunting a single ship. They were hunting a legend in the making. The Ytheri Dawn had disappeared into the void, leaving behind only the burning wreckage of the Krivuk supply station. The attack had been a success, but Captain Elias Voss knew it was only the beginning. Now, the real danger was coming. The Krivuk wouldn't let this humiliation go unanswered. They would be sending their best ships, their most ruthless commanders. The Dawn was no longer just a target. It was an enemy of the Empire. On the bridge, the atmosphere was tense. The crew worked in silence, constantly checking the sensors for any sign of pursuit. The ship's AI, upgraded by human engineers, scanned for threats at all times. Lieutenant Varkis stood near the tactical station, his mandibles twitching. "We should not have done this," he muttered. "We should have fled when we had the chance." Voss, standing with his arms crossed, smirked. "And go where, Lieutenant? The Krivuk were always going to chase us. At least now, we've hurt them first." Commander Zeltor, standing beside them, nodded. "He is right. The Krivuk fight with brute strength. They expect their enemies to run. But we are showing them something new: strategy." Varkis exhaled sharply. "Then let us hope your human strategy works before they crush us." Marla Hayes, the ship's chief engineer, turned from her console. "Captain, I've been looking at our fuel reserves. That last fight burned through more energy than expected. We need to refuel soon, or we're dead in the water." Voss frowned. "Any friendly ports nearby?" Zeltor shook his head. "We are deep in Krivuk territory. No allies here." Marla hesitated. "Then, we have one option." She tapped her console, pulling up a star map. "There's a derelict mining station not far from here, abandoned for years, but it should still have fuel reserves." Varkis' mandibles clicked in frustration. "And what if it is a trap?" Voss shrugged. "Then we spring it on them instead." He turned to the crew. "Set course for the station. Let's hope there's something left worth taking." The Ytheri Dawn arrived at the mining station hours later. The structure floated lifelessly in the dark, covered in layers of dust and ice. It was ancient, built long before the current war. Its engines were dead, its power levels low. Voss narrowed his eyes. "Scan for life signs." Marla ran a quick scan. Nothing. "Looks like it really is abandoned." Zeltor folded his arms. "Then let us move quickly. The Krivuk will not be far behind." Voss nodded. "All right, team. We're going in." Inside the mining station, the air was stale, the walls covered in frost. The station had been abandoned for decades. Dim emergency lights flickered, casting eerie shadows in the empty corridors. Voss, Marla, Zeltor, and a small team of Ytheri soldiers moved cautiously, weapons ready. Marla checked a control panel. "Fuel reserves are intact. We can siphon enough to get back into fighting shape." Zeltor nodded. Then let us work quickly. As the crew started the process, Voss felt a strange unease. Something about this place didn't feel right. Stay alert, he murmured. Just because no one's here doesn't mean we're safe. His instincts were right. Minutes later, the station's old warning systems crackled to life. A proximity alarm blared, sending echoes through the empty halls. Voss's communicator beeped. "Captain," came the voice of Veracus. "A Krivok war fleet has entered the system. They are scanning the station." Voss swore under his breath. "How many ships?" "At least 20. A hunting fleet." Marla paled. "They're not here by accident. They're here for us." Voss turned to the team. "Get that fuel loaded now. We're leaving." Back on the Wytheri Dawn, alarms blared as the Krivok fleet surrounded the mining station. Varkis watched from the bridge, his mandibles tightening. "They know we are here." The lead Krivok battleship transmitted a message. The face of Commander Kravos, one of the Empire's most feared hunters, appeared on screen. His reptilian eyes gleamed with satisfaction. "Humans," he growled. "You have made a grave mistake." Voss, now back on the bridge, smirked. "Yeah, I make a lot of those. Be specific." Kravos snarled. "You have humiliated the Krivok Empire for the last time. There is no escape." Voss turned to Marla. "We got enough fuel." She nodded. "Just barely." Voss grinned. "Then let's prove him wrong." He turned back to the screen. "Sorry, Kravos. I like making history, and today, we're breaking another rule. You don't get to win." With that, the Wytheri Dawn fired first. The battle erupted in an instant. The Dawn surged forward, its AI-driven weapons striking with pinpoint accuracy. The Krivok warships fired back, their cannons unleashing devastating blasts. But Voss and his crew had one advantage. They weren't fighting to win. They were fighting to survive. Using the mining station as cover, the Dawn weaved through the wreckage, dodging heavy fire. Marla rerouted power to the engines, pushing the ship to its limits. The Krivok fleet closed in, but the Dawn was too fast, too unpredictable. Voss barked orders. "Redirect power to shields. Keep moving." Zeltor fired from the weapons station, striking the Krivok destroyer's engines. The ship spiraled out of control, crashing into a nearby asteroid. One down, 19 to go. Varkis growled. "We cannot win this fight." Voss grinned. "We don't have to. We just have to make them lose us." Marla shouted, "Captain, I have an idea." Voss turned. "Let's hear it." She grinned. "We use the station's power core. If we overload it, the explosion will blind their sensors long enough for us to escape." Voss smirked. "I love human problem-solving." "Do it." Minutes later, the station erupted in a blinding explosion. The shockwave sent Krivok ships tumbling. And in that moment of chaos, the Wytheri Dawn vanished into hyperspace. On the bridge, silence filled the air. The crew looked at each other, realizing what they had just done. Varkis exhaled. "We live. Again." Zeltor turned to Voss. "We cannot keep doing this forever." Voss smirked. "Then we better make sure the next fight ends this war for good." Because now, the humans weren't just running. They were planning to win. The Wytheri Dawn shot through hyperspace, barely escaping the explosion of the mining station. Captain Elias Voss stood on the bridge, hands gripping the command console. His crew had pulled off another impossible escape, but he knew they couldn't keep running forever. Commander Zeltor stepped forward. "Captain, where do we go now? The Krivok will not stop hunting us." Voss exhaled. "We stop running." Lieutenant Varkis's mandibles twitched in shock. "You wish to fight them." Voss turned to Marla Hayes, the ship's chief engineer. "How much of the Krivok's tech have we integrated?" Marla grinned. "A lot. Their weapons, their shields, even their stealth tech. The Dawn is no longer the weak ship it used to be." Zeltor nodded slowly. "Then you have a plan." Voss smirked. Of course. We take the fight to them. The last battlefield. The Elitheri Dawn emerged from hyperspace at the edge of a Krivok command station, one of their largest. This was where their warships refueled, where their fleet was coordinated. It was their heart. Voss stood tall. We destroy this station, and we cripple their war efforts. Zeltor folded his arms. This is madness. Voss grinned. That's what makes it fun. Marla tapped her console. Enemy ships detected. The Krivok fleet is already moving to intercept us. Varkis growled. We are outnumbered 20-1. We will not survive. Voss turned to his crew, eyes filled with determination. We don't need to survive. We need to win. The battle begins. The Krivok fleet surrounded the Dawn, their cannons charging. Then Voss gave the order. Fire everything. The Dawn unleashed a devastating barrage. The modified Krivok weapons tore through enemy shields like paper. The AI-driven targeting system struck every weak point with perfect accuracy. The first Krivok destroyer exploded. Then another. And another. Commander Kravos, leader of the Krivok fleet, appeared on the holoscreen, his face twisted in rage. Human, you dare challenge the Krivok Empire. Voss smirked. Yeah, and we're winning. Kravos roared. You will die for this. Voss laughed. Maybe. But first, I'll make sure you lose everything. He turned to Marla. Is the virus ready? Marla nodded. Uploading now. The Dawn had one last trick. A digital weapon designed by human engineers. It infiltrated the Krivok command network, disabling communications, shutting down power grids, and turning their own ships against each other. Suddenly, Krivok warships started firing at each other. Confusion spread through their ranks. Voss watched with satisfaction. Now, we finish this. The end of the war. The Dawn pushed forward, heading straight for the command station. Enemy ships tried to stop them, but the chaos in their own fleet left them vulnerable. Marla shouted, We're in range. Voss raised a fist. Fire the main cannon. A massive energy blast shot from the Dawn, striking the station's power core. The Krivok command station erupted in a massive explosion, sending shockwaves through space. Their entire chain of command was gone. The Krivok fleet, leaderless and broken, began to retreat. Zeltor stared in awe. It is over. The Krivok are defeated. Varkis, still in shock, whispered, How did we do this? Voss smirked. Because we're human. A new legend. The Elitheri Dawn stood victorious. The once weak ship had destroyed an empire's fleet. News spread across the galaxy. The Krivok were no longer invincible, and it was humans who had changed everything. Voss looked at his crew. We did it. Zeltor placed a hand on his shoulder. No, you did it. Marla grinned. So, what now? Voss chuckled. Now, we go home. As the Dawn entered hyperspace, one thing was clear. This ship was no longer weak. It was unstoppable. And the galaxy would never forget it.